everybody, and welcome to our next pop-up session here live from our showroom in Emmerich. This is session number 3 for this year, and we want to talk a little bit about the topic new roasting machine and now. So this is for all the people who probably just ordered a roaster or maybe is thinking about ordering a machine, and we would like to let you know what will be the next steps before your machine arrives, and of course also what will you have to do by the time your machine is actually arriving at your roastery in your building and you are about to do the first batch. Last time, maybe if you have been here and have been joining us, you probably noticed that we have some slight technical issues and therefore we could not show you our training room. This is of course something we would like to do today, just to give you a nice short impression what will be the location when you come here, have training here at our site in Emmerich. So please join me for just short moments and have a look what it looks like here in our training room. So of course, this is where you enter our training room. In the back you see our nice museum. This is where we of course will have a nice little tour by the time you come here, and then of course in the beginning you already see our different green beans that we have here for training purposes. So we do have just one bag of each. This is enough for us so far, and as we do have short delivery times from our green coffee broker, we can order all the coffees we like and we always have them here right on time for training. We do have different Arabica types and of course some Robusta beans, which we do not only store in the bags but also in our nice silo unit. And you can also see there's some small little silver objects. It's a little bit mirroring effect, but in those things there is different green beans coming from different countries in different qualities, so that we can give them around, open them, feel them, smell them, and just get an impression of what different beans could look like and also smell like, as some people coming here for training did not already experience that so far. And when we move on further, we see our Probatone 25, which is so far the biggest of our shop roasters. And the setup you see here, it's also been equipped with a sucking unit so that we get the coffee in there nice and quickly without all the effort of carrying it up there. Next we see our new P series, the P53 roaster, and we see the nice and shiny touch displays that you probably do not know if having an older version of these roasters. And we go on further, and then we see of course our Probatone and our sample roasters. So also on these roasters we can do training, and when you come here for our group session, most of the times we will use the Probatone roaster. And as you can see, there is no fancy touch display, and we like to use this machine to just let people experience the process of learning how to roast, of experience how to set the burner, and of course what's going on inside the machine, and getting to know the roasting process just by manual roasting. Later on, if you're more experienced and you're going to switch to the next bigger roasters, then of course you have the possibility to use the software system that comes with the bigger machines. And just one more look to the other side around, we see our equipment which we use for quality control. Of course a grinder, and we see the color red, which is our color meter for the roasted coffee. Of course we do have a scale, and then we also have a small screen and a bigger screen which is used for the presentation that we're going to show while you're here for training. So this is our showroom. Of course we are with the company, so this is right directly at PROBAT company, but we have our own little room where we have a nice and quiet surrounding for our training classes, and we are able to just have all the lessons down here. And as said last time already, this could vary from group training to individual training where you decide on the topics. One more small look around before I place the camera in the position so that we have our session with today's topic. And there you can also see, this is my colleague Jens, who will be checking the chat of today, and of course also answer the questions and hand in the questions for the new topics. So, hope you're nice and stable now. Yeah. And I'm just gonna move over here to our new machine that we have set up here. Of course, for us it's a little bit easier to set up a new machine, but we would like to let you know what do you have to do when you're about to receive your new machine. So by the time you order your machine here from our sales team at Probat, they already give you a lot of information what has to be done beforehand. Of course, you have to choose the right location for your machine, and there's a lot of different things you have to take care of. These machines, of course, are all quite heavy due to the material that we use, so make sure that you have a nice and stable ground where you place your machine. There's also the possibilities to move the machines some levels up. Also here, make sure later on we will get to this point when we talk a little bit more. You need to have the right equipment to bring the machine in, and of course the bottom, the floor, needs to be able to carry the weight of the machine. When we talk a little bit more about machine and size, it's of course important to understand that you have to have a certain height of your room, and also that the room has the right size. As our roaster is working with fresh air coming from the room, it has to be sure that there is always enough air in the room so that the roaster can work with it, but you're also able to get enough oxygen while working with the machine. It's also possible to place the roaster in a location which is probably a little bit smaller, but then it needs to be sure that there is the possibility to probably open a door, open a window, do whatever, so that there is enough oxygen always inside the room when you roast, especially when you have probably a small cafe where you place the roaster, and there's also people coming in to have a drink or take away the coffee. Before the roaster comes, we need to understand that we always need to have two pipes to the outside. So there's one is the roasting exhaust air pipe that needs to go to the outside, and the other one is the exhaust air from the cooling. So there will be two breaks in your wall so that you're able to get your roasting exhaust and cooling exhaust air to the outside of your roasting room. Later on we will go around the machine. I'm going to show you how this will look like. Of course, it's necessary that you have the right electrical connection with your roaster and also the right gas connection with your roaster. This is things which has to be done beforehand, before the machine comes, because what happens by the time the machine gets delivered, first of all, you have different options that you can choose from, how you get your machine delivered, or probably that you pick up your machine here at Probat, or also that our technicians just take the machine in the car and bring them to you. This would be, of course, always depending on how far you're away from us, okay? So most of the times when you get your machine delivered with a forwarding agency, then of course you need to make sure that the forwarder, they usually just bring you the machine. So they're not going to help you to bring the machine inside, and in some cases they're also not even helping you to get the machine off the trailer they bring it with. So make sure that you have all the equipment, that you have a forklift, or that you have enough manpower to get the machine to the right position in your roastery. If you come here and pick your machine up by yourself, of course you need to make sure that the machine is safely stored in the car or truck that you're using, that the car or truck that you're using is able to carry the weight. This is of course depending on the size of the machine. If you decide for a sample roaster, you can just come here in your normal car, pick it up, put it in the trunk, and you're all fine. But Probatino, already having a weight of 130 kilograms, not everybody is able to get this in the car and bring it home. One cool thing, if you actually get the machine delivered from us, that means you already buy delivery and setup and the first installations with your machine, then we send our technician and they will bring the machine and they will put also with you together the machine in place. Please take care. In most cases they don't bring a forklift, so this is stuff that you have to organize by the time they come. So by the time your machine is ready for delivery, you just make an appointment and then they come to you with the machine. In most cases, this is valid for Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, so everything that's pretty much close so that we can cover this with car. And by the time they come, they put the machine in place. You need to make sure that also all the other authorized personnel, when it comes to gas connection or electrical connection, that they will be there at the same time. Because if not, the right connection cannot be made at this moment, and maybe our technician then needs to leave without even being able to run the machine with you. So make sure that all the people you have involved in this procedure are also there at this moment when the machine arrives and the technician is then with the machine. At this time, you will need to make the connection of the air system. This is something, the air system also has been made beforehand, as we cannot say how is the situation in your roastery. We usually do not know how many meters of pipeline do you need, or how many bendings is probably in the pipe and such things. So this is something you need to speak beforehand with the right people with, so that they can make the air system, and then later on, of course, also the connection of that system. And the next one is the gas connection. Depending on the gas type that you have, either it's natural or propane gas, you might have just a propane bottle that needs to be connected to the roaster, or you have the gas pipe, and therefore, of course, this also can only be done by authorized people that have the ability to do that and work with this. Same applies for the electrical connection. So this is all stuff that cannot be done by our technicians. So by the time the machine arrives, he will do, and of course help with all the connections, make sure everything is all right. And then of course the other have to be there as well as at the same time. And now I'm going to show you in the back how it will look like when you make the connection of the air. So therefore I will use the other camera again and just show you a little bit in the back what I just talked about, so that you get an idea of what it looks like. So here we have our fantastic new roaster, and then we sneak around the corner and we see here, this is the exhaust air from the cooling. What you can see here now, this is how it could be working when the roaster is set up probably temporary. Later on, you might gonna make it a stable connection, which I just show you in a little bit. And we also see the gas connection on the floor. So this is something which also has been done, everything in advance. And when we have a look a little bit more up, we see the connection of the roasting air. Please remember, everything in black is coming with the machine. Everything in silver has to be done by a company which is able to do all your air system. Please don't worry, here we see a lot of pipes, but this is only due to the fact that we have a lot of machines being connected to the same exhaust air system. And when we now move around and have a look to the other machine, we see the stable connection, how it should actually look like when the machine is in place and you know that this position will be kept for a while, then you make this connection. Also here, everything in gray comes from us, and the rest, please, needs to be provided by you beforehand. We also see, of course, our chef collector, and this connection will be made by our technician, and also we see the air flap in the back. This will also be done by our technician when he comes, so that you have the right negative pressure in your system, helping you to suck out the air from the roasting. Okay, just bringing you guys back to the table. I hope you saw everything. Of course, if there's questions in the meantime, please let us know, and we will of course be happy to answer them as well. So by the time you got your machine, everything is set up, everything is in place. Of course, you're all nervous maybe, and most of the times more than happy to get started and make your first roast. So for the first roast, if you have the coffee there, our technician will also help you with this. That does not mean that he's gonna give you a recipe or whatever. It's just to get the machine running and see if technically everything is working fine. So for that reason, make sure that you already have coffee by the time the technician arrives. It could also, for the very, very first 2 batches, probably be some coffee which you found somewhere, which your green coffee broker had left, which probably does not have such a good quality, and you just were able to buy it for a cheap amount of money, because the first 2 batches you should use to clean off the machine. So of course, by the time the roasters are built in our factory, there is some oily stuff which is inside. There might be also other things that you firstly need to clean out, and for this reason you always take a batch or 2 and just take cheap coffee or maybe cherry stones to manually wipe off all the oily parts which are inside your drum probably. And by the time you do that, the technician will also check again for the drum gap, if everything is fine or if there's maybe a lot of particles falling through. So this will all be done during those cleanup batches. And then sometimes some roasters, they like to season their machine. So that also means just give it a good coffee in the beginning after all the oily parts are off, to make it ready to be a real roaster, to make it ready for the good coffee to get inside. Just seasoning the machine. Some people do it, some people don't. Just make sure that you already have enough coffee there and ready for the technician to be used, and then you can do the first few batches together with him. Also important, when the machine is there and arrives, let him show you all the important stuff that you need to know. So where's the main switch? How do I turn on my machine? How probably change small things that probably the drum gap, or maybe how to apply grease on the front bearing, all those stuff. That's the reason why he is there, to just answer all those questions. And by the time you get the machine started, of course, familiarize yourself with the software. You could do this with the manual and read everything beforehand and then just get started, or you just have the technician right there and he will start the machine with you, showing you all the details coming from the software, where to find what. Of course, you will not find recipes in the software. So this is something where we still have the opinion, this is something you should come up with. You should have your idea of your own recipes and how to get them in. Of course, we could probably say, yeah, we have some basic recipes and we already uploaded them, but still you would need to work from this. So this does, of course, not really work worldwide, as everybody has different understanding of what a good coffee is, or what a good coffee in that region probably is. So therefore, everything that you would like to do and create recipes with, you need to firstly manually roast and therefrom create your recipes later on. And now you have your new machine, and probably it's the first roaster you ever had, or maybe it's the second one and you've already had a different roaster before. What to do then? Different roaster could mean older model of a PROBAT, smaller model of a PROBAT. Different machine could also mean you had probably a roaster from a different manufacturer. And then it's very important that you understand that all of those machines, they of course more or less all do the same. They all roast coffee, they all apply energy and heat that goes into the coffee bean, but they all do it a little bit different. So therefore, by the time you get your machine, make sure you understand where is the different thermocouples located, where is actually the temperature that you see on your screen coming from, where is the drum speed set, what does it actually do, so that you really do understand your machine, because only then you can work with it and maybe transfer the profiles that you already have for a coffee that you love and for a coffee that needs to taste the same for your customers. And then you go ahead and make sure that also different machines, maybe even if they do have the same batch size, they have different material for the drum. They probably have a different burner. They have a different work-wise of how the air is going and moving through the drum itself. And if you do understand how this works, then you can go ahead and take your roasting curves from your old roaster and transfer them to the new roaster. And I really say transfer, and it's very important to understand it's not one-to-one. So please do not go ahead and take the temperature values that you know and try to use the same in your new machine. Because there's a new technology, there might is a new burner, there probably is a different batch size, there's probably different understandings of different manufacturers of how they would like to roast, and this all needs to be taken into consideration. And of course, there's always a slight hint from our side on how to start, what starting temperature you could use, but this is always a more or less. You could start from probably 190 to 210 dropping temperature, but there is no, this has to be like this. So we will of course give you an idea. And from then on, you do know and understand that your coffee has a certain roasting time. And this is something you can take from one machine to the other machine. Maybe it's 14 minutes, 30 or something like this, and you know that your coffee was then well developed with a development time of probably 2 minutes at the end. And this can also be done at your new machine. Of course, after you're ready with your roast and you try to transfer your old recipe to your new machine, the most important is that you taste this coffee, because you want to give your customer the same cup experience of what they do know. Otherwise, your coffee will be tasting completely different and your customer might notice that. So also here, tasting the coffee is very important. What to do for this? Always keep samples from your coffees. So be able to compare and always have coffees there that you can use for the comparison with the recipe coming from your new machine. And then you might gonna see that the new machine gives you coffee which is a little bit more acidic or maybe misses some of the flavors, and then you need to adjust your recipe. What we said before, different machine needs some adjustments. You cannot use the same recipe of what you knew before in your new machine, especially when you probably change your batch size. So this is also something, if you had a machine before 1 kilo, 3 kilo, 5 kilo, and you all of a sudden move to 12 or even 25 kilo, then of course you need to understand maybe the roasting time will be the same, hopefully, and also the color will be the same, as this is very important to give you the same result in the cup. But of course there can be still slight adjustments needed when you have a new roaster. So familiarize yourself with the work-wise of the roaster, and also beforehand try to read the manual, even if this is maybe not the most common thing to do for a lot of people. Try to see how does it work, how is the heat being brought to my bean, how will it develop, does it have different ways of probably developing aroma, and this all needs to be taken into consideration when you get a new machine. And then of course it could still be that you say, yeah, I'm quite happy with the result, but I could be happier. And if you have the feeling that there's still something missing, of course you could always give us a call and ask, so that we can help out and just give you the probably tiny little idea that is missing to come out with the exact same taste, or maybe if wanted, a better taste from your new roaster machine. And yeah, by the time this is all done, you're all set to go, and you're happy then to roast. And yeah, there's a lot of features that we have in our new roaster which can help if there might be a problem when you have set up the machine by yourself. Still, it will be possible for our technicians if you give them a call, so that they can help you. And also here, with all the new things we have been trying out during the last couple of months, we came up with also team session for sure, and we also try to help with the setup. So if you're able to do that, just make an appointment and then we go around the machine making short videos or making a one-to-one meeting, so that we actually have the possibility to show you and help you directly what to do with your machine at the right point. And now I see there's a question.
Yes, we do have a question from Chen.
Okay.
Regarding the consistency of the machine. So he's looking for some advice. What can be done to be as consistent as possible with the first batch already. So does it make sense to heat up the roaster to a certain temperature, keep it there for 5, 10, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
or to achieve one certain temperature 3 times in a row, for example?
Yeah, this also differs, good question by the way, this also differs from machine to machine according to the material, according to the burner and the power that you have, different heating up procedures. So it could help if you say, I would like to have it more consistent also with batch number 1, that you just heat up your machine quite slowly and allow it for a longer time to heat up, so that all your drum is heated up completely, all the shovel system inside, and not just the hot airflow, which is actually measured and gives you an idea on the temperature. So maybe if you have the time, you could heat up for 45 minutes or maybe even up to an hour, keep it on a lower burner level, and maybe overheat your dropping temperature slightly, let it cool down again, heat it up again, so that you have a stable dropping temperature for your coffee after maybe 45 minutes or an hour. And also the protocol in between batches needs to be more or less the same. So don't let it cool down too much after you're done with one batch before filling the next one. Try to keep it in a stable position. Therefore, we have the new feature which we call standby, so you can put your machine into a standby mode and it will constantly keep the same temperature in between batches, so that you're sure that it's not too cool and you need to bring it back up to your dropping temperature again before you go on roasting with your next batch. And if you do that and go ahead and not just only do 3 batches and then stop, the more you roast, the longer your machine is getting heat and energy, the more stable it becomes. So still, first batch, even if heating up slowly, will be slightly different from the rest of the batches of that day, but this is normal as with first batch. Still, the machine is in that heating up process. Also here, very important, while you set up your machine and heat up your roaster, make sure that you also watch your outside weather conditions, because if you have slight differences here and you probably come from rain and you go through the day to blue sky and sunshine, this slightly changes the conditions in your machine and also the condition of the air suction, which is now pretty cool to monitor with the negative pressure which is shown on your display. And if you, of course, bought this option, and this helps you to be very stable all the time during roasting on your roasting day. Thank you, Champ, for the question.
Another question from Marco, and this is related to customers with a -2 series roaster, so a Probatone -2 series roaster, and the ones who now already own a Series 3, a P series roaster.
Yeah.
And he is asking, I understand that the burners are the same, but what about the burner ratings, so the burner power level? Is it comparable? So can I possibly use the same burner power levels that I used to have on my -2 series roaster, a P12, Probatone 12-2, and now I own a P12 Series 3?
Yeah.
I suppose it should be more or less similar.
Yeah, the tricky part about this is you use the same burner setting, but the temperatures you probably see with the burner setting, they will be slightly different. Not because they are so different, just because the position of the thermocouple is different. So it could happen that you see, I'm heating up with 90% and I would like to drop at 210, And it could happen that your result will give you an idea, maybe don't drop with 210, drop already with 200 degrees. But this is just because the position of the thermocouple has changed and we are now more in the bean pile, and we see different temperatures. Inside, if we would change the position back to where it was before, you would exactly see the same. But the burner itself and also the burner power levels that you use to complete your roast, they will be more or less the same. Maybe it's a little 5% or 10% off, but this is not due to a different roasting process, as this, everything what was good before we kept. So burner and also the movement of the air inside the machine and the shovel system and the double wall drum, this is all the same. You should achieve more or less the same result with more or less the same settings. Yes. Thanks, Marco.
Okay, another question. If cooling does affect the roasting process of the next batch, it does not, because it's a separate pipe.
Yeah, this is why we said in the beginning, when you get a new roaster, and will be one of our Probatone -2 or now also the P3 series, the cooling does not affect the roasting. We do have two separate pipes. One is for the exhaust air for the roasting, where we pull the air through the system of the roasting drum, and the other one, the cooling, will be drawn through the cooling sieve in an extra pipe and then brought to the outside with an extra ventilation. So roasting, cooling at the same time with no influence at all.
Okay, just looking, next question from Anderson. Whether there's a difference if you run your roaster with natural gas or propane gas?
If I would say no, it would not be completely right. There is no difference in outcome of the roasting because our burner is adjustable to the gas that you are using. So this is also the reason when you ask for an offer and then later on you get the quotation, there's always the question from the sales team, what kind of gas will you be using? So that we have the option to already preset the burner to the gas type you're using, and then there's no matter if you use one or the other, the outcome, the usage of this gas will be the same depending on how the burner is set. And then there's also another cool thing, even if you decide later on that you might want to change your gas type, because before you were forced to roast with propane, there was no gas pipe from the city possible, and later on they are providing you with one. There is also just a few little steps that we need to take, and then you can just switch from one gas type to the other gas type, have the same outcome of your roasting result with just one machine, one burner. So this is also possible. Hope this answered the question.
I suppose, but one always has to keep in mind that if you compare two of the same type machines, so the Probatone 5-2 of your friend and yours,
it could be different.
Could be different.
Of course.
And even two propane gas heated machines could be different because there are a lot of other things that might have an impact on the heat transfer, on the heat distribution. So how's the chimney afterwards?
True.
How long has the machine in operation and all these things.
Yeah, this is also a very good point that you're talking about, because even if you have your new machine and your friend has the same new machine and you do the exact same setup, it's still possible that the machines, they are not 100% the same in roasting, which is completely normal, as maybe your friend is located somewhere else and has different conditions surrounding the roaster. So also here make sure, if you do comparisons or if you probably seen a cool video on roasting and you would like to go ahead and just take the same settings, make sure that your machine can handle this, so that you don't go into a dangerous situation because you just take some advice of probably a roaster coming from a different manufacturer, or maybe a roaster with different age or different batch size, or maybe even if it's the same roasters, one is located in Emmerich and the other one is probably somewhere in the mountains, then they also will have different behavior even with the same setting. So always make sure that if you do compare stuff, also the tiny things, they do count a lot. Jens, is there more questions?
What's the best profile for espresso roasting?
Oh yeah, that's a very easy question to answer.
And whether dark roast is possible in our machines?
Oh yes, dark roast is definitely possible. Dark roast, it always depends on how dark do we talk. But if dark roast is exceeding second crack for a while and beans are nice dark and probably already shiny from the outside, definitely possible. So if one probably is familiar with the color red values, the darkest one so far we have been roasting here in training session was below 60, which is already quite dark on the color red scale. And yeah, the best espresso profile, sorry for the answer, but the best espresso profile will be the one that suits and tastes the best for your customer. So there is no standard espresso roasting profile that we could advise you. Some people still like to roast a little longer and a little darker because probably they have coffees with a higher amount of acidity which they would like to get out for the coffee to be an espresso, but still there's people already still roasting coffee quite light in a short time and also use that for espresso. So also here very depending on the local situation, on the drinking behavior of your customer, if one probably would like to have the espresso shot with a lot of sugar, or if they have it black, or if they probably would like to use the espresso for a milk-based beverage. So there's a lot of different things that have an impact on your profile which you use for your coffee to be an espresso. And there is not that, what we say, okay, always 18-minute plus, always very dark, and then it's a good espresso. So espresso could also be quite light roasted, quite short roasted. Everything which is good tasting for you and the customer when it's running through the espresso machine, this is an espresso. So all beans can be used, all roasting styles can be used. Of course, there will be very different outcomes. It could be very fruity, it could be very bitter. So from one end to the other, all is possible. And you have to find the perfect profile for you and your customer to make the espresso a success.
Okay, another question regarding espresso roast. So Eva is asking how to avoid an astringent taste in her espresso. What might be the cause?
Yeah, there's different causes for this. So astringency most of the time is that feeling when you have on your tongue when it's that very sourish, kind of bitterish flavor that you get from this. And astringent could come from a very light roasting color, could come from a short roasting time, maybe a too short development time, because in your development time you create roasting aroma, and this could help you to avoid the astringent taste that you get. So here we might need to talk a little bit more on the phone or via Teams to find out what's the coffee type that you're using, what's your profile that you're actually using, so that we can come up with an idea of how to get rid of that flavor for your special case. Because also here there is unfortunately not an overall answer that suits that question, as there is too many factors that could give you that astringency in your espresso. But let's chat on this, just the two of us, and then we're going to find out. Would that be okay, Eva? I hope so.
Now we have another lot of questions just to see where I can...
It's not so easy to follow the chat and already give the answers and also reading the questions. So
is it possible to load more than 5 kilo in a P5?
Yes, it is possible to load more than 5 kilos. Usually when we just talk theory, we, by the time we fill 5 kilo in our machine, our roasting drum is filled up to 30–40%, depending of course on the size of the beans. But if you fill more, you have to understand that this will definitely have an influence on the taste at the end, because more beans means they're going to get more contact from the drum and from the shovel system, and later on, by the time the beans become bigger during roasting, they also get more contact heat transfer from other beans. So even if you roast more, it does not mean that this is better, but it is definitely possible to overload your machine. So we have been running tests with P5, and we dropped 5 kg, 2.5 500 gram, and also 7.5 kilo, and they all came out nicely in terms of color and timing, but of course here the development is very different. So the very small batches, of course the roasting curve was very flat. They kind of tasted too empty, as the development in temperature just took too long for them. And the bigger batches, due to having more contact in between the drum and the beans themselves, they were not fully developed. They were not as round and complex as they would have been with only a batch size of 5 kg, but definitely possible to do that.
So far, no further questions. Just
okay.
use your chance.
Yeah, I would say go ahead and give us your questions. As yeah, otherwise I would say we are done with the topic of today. If there is probably some more things you will need to clarify when you're about to buy your machine or your machine is about to arrive, of course this could also be done on the phone. Send emails, so do whatever you need to get all your answers so that you're sure that you have thought of everything when your machine comes and that you're ready then to go. And I would say we just give it a few more moments just to see if there's some questions popping in. And yeah, otherwise I would like to thank you for joining us today. So another session here from our showroom in Emmerich, where we hopefully are able to welcome you very soon again. And yeah, just a short beforehand, next session will be May 12th. So just keep the date in mind, stay tuned for cool different topics to come that we're going to talk about. And if I'm just having a look at Jens, I would say there's no more questions, so shaking the head. So yeah, this would be it for today's session. Thank you for being with us again. And I would say see you next time. Thank you guys for joining. Bye.